Some mistakes in football get forgotten by the next transfer window. In 2014, Chelsea signed a 21-year-old winger from Egypt for around £11 million. He had pace defenders couldn't live with. He'd already made a name for himself in Europe. On paper, this signing looked simple. It wasn't. Within 18 months, that player was gone, sold for a fraction of what he'd eventually be worth, written off as a player who couldn't adapt. His name was Mohamed Salah. Most versions of this story start there, with the club that got it wrong, but that's the easy version. The real story starts earlier, before Chelsea, before any club in Europe knew his name. It starts with a teenager on a bus, going somewhere nobody thought would matter. Nagreg, a small village in Egypt's Nile Delta. No academies nearby, no scouts, just kids playing on a strip of dirt that passed for a pitch. Mohamed Salah was one of them, and he wanted more of it than the village could offer. The nearest serious training ground was in Cairo, roughly 4 hours away by bus, each direction. He made that trip most days of the week for years. Salah broke into Egyptian professional football as a teenager, then moved to Swiss club Basel, where his performances in European competition started drawing attention from bigger leagues. Then Chelsea came calling. For a kid who'd spent 3 years on buses just to get noticed, this should have been the payoff. The dream delivered. But arriving at the top comes with a problem nobody warns you about. Everyone else there is already good too. And Salah was about to find that out the hard way. Chelsea's attack was stacked. Eden Hazard, Willian, Oscar, players already trusted by the manager. Salah waited, for minutes, for confidence, for someone to believe there was more in him than what they were seeing. 19 appearances, 2 goals. That's the entire record of his time at the club. The question around him quietly shifted. It stopped being, how good could this player become? It became, was he ever good enough to begin with? Football rarely waits for potential. It judges what's in front of it, right now. And what was in front of Chelsea wasn't convincing enough. He was loaned out, then sold, sent away from the club that was supposed to be the reward for everything before it. If you think that's where this turns into a redemption story, it's not that simple yet, because exile doesn't automatically make anyone better. It just gives them the chance to find out what they're actually capable of, with nobody protecting them and nobody watching too closely either. Italy was about to answer that question. At Fiorentina, Salah started playing regularly again. At Roma, something more than that happened. He started to change. The uncertain wide player from Chelsea's bench became something closer to a weapon. Faster decisions, sharper finishing, a player defenders had to actually plan for. Across his 2 seasons in Rome, Salah scored 34 goals in 83 appearances, production that had been nowhere in his Chelsea numbers. And then the clubs that had once watched him fail started watching him differently. One of them decided it wanted him back in England, not Chelsea. 2017, Liverpool signed Salah. And the player walking back into the Premier League isn't the one who left it. He didn't ease back in, he detonated. 32 Premier League goals in his first Liverpool season, a record for a 38-game campaign at the time. The same league that had quietly written him off 2 years earlier was now trying to figure out how to stop him. Somewhere in London, Chelsea had a courtside seat to watch what they'd let go, but there was still a gap in the story. He'd conquered England. He hadn't yet been tested on football's biggest single stage, a Champions League final. That test was coming, and it wouldn't go the way anyone hoped. 2018 Champions League final. Liverpool against Real Madrid. The biggest match of Salah's career, at the peak of his best season. 30 minutes in, He goes down in a challenge with Real Madrid's Sergio Ramos. He tries to continue. He can't. A dislocated shoulder. He walks off in tears. Liverpool lose 3-1. He watches the rest of the biggest game of his life from the locker room, arm in a sling. Think about the distance behind that moment. Years of 4-hour bus rides. Being cut loose by Chelsea. Rebuilding an entire career in a foreign country. Coming back and breaking a scoring record. And then, on the one night, all of it was supposed to matter most. It ends in under half an hour, by accident, in someone else's hands. So here's what's actually worth asking before we go any further. After a moment like that, what does a player even have left to come back with? He came back, kept scoring, kept improving. And a year later, Liverpool reached the Champions League final again. This time, Tottenham. This time, Salah was still on the pitch when it mattered. Less than 2 minutes in, Liverpool won a penalty. Salah walked toward the ball. For a second, this wasn't just a penalty. It was every bus ride. Every missed chance in a youth match nobody remembers but him. Every minute on Chelsea's bench. Every claim that he wasn't good enough. Every step through Italy, rebuilding what Chelsea had dismissed. And Kiev, the ending that got taken from him a year earlier. He scored. Liverpool won the Champions League. This time, Salah didn't leave the pitch in tears. He stayed for all 90 minutes. He lifted the trophy. The ending Kiev interrupted finally arrived, a year later than planned, which somehow made it heavier. Here's the uncomfortable question worth sitting with before this ends. Was Chelsea actually foolish for letting him go? Not necessarily. At 21, Salah wasn't the player we're describing now. He was unfinished, inconsistent, still becoming himself. Chelsea saw the player he was. What they couldn't see was the player he'd still become. Because that player didn't exist yet. They didn't reject the superstar. They rejected an unfinished version of one. At the exact moment, nobody could have predicted which version he turned into. That's a more honest story than Chelsea made a mistake. And it's a more useful one too. His greatest achievement wasn't the 32 goals. It wasn't the transfer to Liverpool. It wasn't even the trophy in Madrid. It was everything that happened before any of it was guaranteed. When there was no promise the story would end this way. And every reasonable person around him might have told him to expect less. So, your answer. Did Chelsea make a mistake letting Salah go? Or was he simply not ready yet? Comment. Chelsea mistake or not ready? Let's see which side wins. And if you know someone who's ever been counted out too early, send them this. Being rejected isn't the same as being finished. For more stories about players who came back when nobody expected it, subscribe to Rise&Conquer. The next one might be about someone you think you already know. He kept getting on the bus anyway. They counted them out. We tell you what happened next.